May the Force be with you.
Hey guys, welcome to the third episode of the High Ground Podcast. We are the Perfect Cast. I'm the Padawan.
I'm Chris.
Chris the Apprentice.
Yes, sir.
And we're here to talk more about lightsabers. So we appreciate you guys joining us today. And Chris, how you doing?
I'm doing good today. How you doing?
Well, it's been a pretty good day, man. Pretty good day. You know, having a day off.
Setup's looking nice, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And so anything new since last time we chatted?
Not necessarily. Sold some stuff, I guess you could say, from my collection to make room for some new stuff. Trying to calm down on buying so much, but there have been occasionally some really nice deals with some stuff that I really want, and my wallet slides right back open.
Yeah, I find that passing up a good deal is hard. So
yeah, it is.
So what we talked about on the last episode, we talked about our collections, right?
Yeah, correct.
What we have and what we do. Okay. So as you mentioned when we closed last week, I think we're gonna just talk about lightsabers in general. We're gonna be episode 3, and we're gonna talk about what the lightsaber manufacturing process is like, what kind of lightsabers are out there to collect, how they're made, really more foundational stuff. I think, in our first several episodes, that's going to be the target for us, because I think we want to learn, research on our own, help bring it out, present, and help feed the community, anybody that's willing to tune in, listen to our voices, or watch our ugly mugs.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So why don't you start us off, Chris?
So we could talk about original trilogy sabers, essentially.
I am waiting for Vancini. He says, go back to the beginning, and that's where I am. You take me there.
So this is actually, I would say, more your realm. Really, I've learned the most about original trilogy sabers from you, and probably looking at like Dave Parkin's site, but that's only a specific couple of sabers. And you have real parts experiences. So genuinely, I would like you to take the lead on this, and I probably will learn something while you're talking about this.
Okay, so original trilogy then is where you think the beginning is. Okay.
Correct.
I agree. I fully agree with that. I think that you got to go with the first lightsaber that ever came on screen, right? How it got introduced and all that stuff. And, I think what's really amazing is that those were lightsabers. Like Luke, literally, as he's holding up his lightsaber, he's got like electronic cables going and they're doing so many things to that lightsaber to kind of make it work, and that for that shot to happen. And it's just really, really cool.
This with a cord running down his arm.
Exactly. He's holding up, and if you look at the shots, you can see the wires. And it's just, and so it's pretty great, I think. So original trilogy, I think, to me, is the place to start. And we could do 5 episodes on these sabers and everything else, but we'll keep it concise.
Keep it concise and brief. Yeah.
For now. So, well, you start with what you see first, and that's the original Groflex, right? So,
Wait a minute. How did this happen? We're smarter than this.
With the original trilogy, what segregates all of their lightsabers compared to other lightsabers, you have the fact that in A New Hope, every one of those lightsabers that you see on screen, whether it's a stunt or anything else, it's made from some kind of real piece of machinery. And we've talked a little bit about like what my favorite personal lightsaber is and what favorite design lightsaber is. And those two couldn't be more worlds apart. And
agreed.
My favorite design is the Kenobi Phantom Menace. And then my favorite overall is the Kenobi lightsaber from A New Hope. The Kenobi being made from, pieces of a machine gun, pieces of a sync knob, part of a camera flash, rifle grenades from 1910, in piece of a jet engine. Like, these are all the components, right? And then there are calculator parts that are put in there too for some of the smaller bit. And you look at that and you think, well, how did they do that? Well, it's okay. Well, it's because of the type of lightsabers they were making. George Lucas said, I may have said this in the first episode, but he said, he told Roger Christian, and he said, I want you to use things from this universe, but I want you to make them look out of this universe and in the Star Wars universe. I want them to look sci-fi, but be from this universe. So that's what they did, man. They took all these pieces and parts for from a camera flash that you see from movies in the 30s and 40s and 50s and 60s, where they had that big old flash sitting on the side of the camera. Both Darth Vader's lightsabers made from one of those, Luke's lightsabers made from one of those, or Anakin's, as the prequels retconned. But all of that happening, they really worked hard to make them out of things that were everyday items, or at one point had been everyday items or known items in our universe. Flip them on their head and make them look like they belong in our space. So, you take that and you look at you mentioned Dave P, but you take that and you look at this lightsaber and you think, what is this made of? And it's made of calculator, bit from a camera, the whole middle section, machine gun, sync knob, rifle grenade from World War One. This whole piece right here is, and then this comes from a jet engine. Like, it's insane. Because this looks like it was designed, and like the other kind that we're going to talk about, which is every other lightsaber pretty much, and there's an exception here or there, but every other lightsaber pretty much is, well, I mean, it's what we're trying to do, right? Like, you're trying to learn to do the computer stuff. Like, how do you build a lightsaber in CAD? How do you come up with a design? Like, how do you do that?
I mean, it's something that I would like to learn how to do in the future. I think both of us would like to learn how to do that in the future. And love to do it. It's definitely, I learned how to install sabers. This is off topic, but I want to learn how to make chassis next, which is what houses your electronics in an FX saber. I think it'd be awesome to do machining. There's a lot of cool people in the community that already do like completely custom machining. But getting into CAD's just a whole nother can of worms, I guess you could say.
Right. So everything from an automobile to an airplane to everything that we use today, like technology is used with a computer, and basically every angle and gap and nut and rivet and bolts, like everything is just over scrutinized to the nth level. And I think that's the difference between the original trilogy lightsabers and pretty much everything else we see today. Because everything else today is something out of someone's mind based on what the original trilogies gave us, and then based on what lightsabers have come after that. They try to stay within universe with the look and feel, but they're designing something. And then they take a big metal blank, stick it on a lathe and spin, or they do machining with straight machining cuts or laser etching or cutting, or some parts are 3D printed. And I think from there, when you look at what they are, and you look at how they're made, I mean, that's your basic two groups, right? You've got the original trilogy, which are real parts from real things, and then you have kind of everything else from there. And I would say that there is probably one more side category, and I'd throw stunts into that category, because stunts are not generally made the way either of these two are. A lot of times with the metal hero that you get today, where they design it and they put it on a lathe and turn it out, or some other way, and they make it and build it. Instead what they're doing is they're taking that, and then they're going to set that down, and they're going to put it into a mold. They're going to make a mold around it, pour resin, paint the resin, and then now they've got these stunts that they can use that they can break. Yeah, so this is a spin flex from episode 3. So beautiful little stunt saber. A rod comes out of there. You see all kinds of footage from Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen fighting with these things, and it's actually what they said is their favorite lightsabers, because they're so light. They're sometimes flexible because there's a core. They learn how to paint rubber. But so yeah, they use resin, they use rubber, casting, all kinds of casting for the stunts. And in the original movie, episode 4, they made a wooden block of this as part of one of the stunts. And I mean, it's kind of cool, but like that was kind of the framework to show George Lucas, hey, this is what we're thinking about. And it never made it on screen or anything, but they used that then to go out and build some stunts that had other features that they needed with different scenes. Because essentially, what we've talked about now is that the original trilogy made for real parts.
Yes.
And the heroes of today are made from cast piece, and someone's designing it and thinking about it. And then there are the stunts that are made with resin and casting and other processes. But overall, when you put all that together, so then you take it and you think about it, and you've got those 3 categories: original, new, today's, and then stunts. Then you think that the lightsaber on screen, they have to have different purposes. Like this bad boy's got to hang on a belt and look pretty. And then you've got another one like the spin flex you just held up. It's got to have a carbon fiber or some other type of blade on it for those two guys to really hammer at each other so that the fighting scenes look authentic and real. So essentially, you need different techniques and for making and manufacturing things, because one, you're going to break them on set today because of how aggressive some of the saber battles are. And I mean, from start to finish, I mean, that's basically what you're looking at. That's basically how they're made, how the different versions are made, and what different types of lightsabers there are.
I think one thing I wanted to say on the first topic was just that it's really interesting how everything was actually made from real parts, but it's so iconic that you associate it with exactly like being a lightsaber. I mean, you could do the same thing with the prequels as well, and the same thing with the newer series as well, but there's just something special about every part almost being something in every single part was in real world items, and I think it's special. So
it makes it really special. So with that being the making process, as we're trying to put that out there, we explain the difference between like full accuracy and like an idealized version when they're making these. And it doesn't apply as much obviously to the original trilogy, because if you buy the right Graflex flash, it's accurate because it's the right one.
Yeah.
If you buy the right grenade, it's the right grenade. It's pretty much accurate. But yeah, can you kind of explain what that means? Because makers do have to take these considerations in play.
So first thing I'll talk about is like when someone does something that's idealized, it is like so sometimes there's different versions of a saber that you'll see, and one will have multiple rings that are all asymmetrical in the same style. But in the movie, maybe they had another prop where the rings, one's fatter, one's smaller, one's fatter, one's smaller on the grenade section. And they'll basically idealize that concept of that grenade, so they'll make all of those rings even. And it's probably like they wanted to make it the most symmetrical and perfect, I guess you could say, almost. Would be the best way I would explain it. I don't know how you'd put it at that point, because that's almost exactly what I would call it.
I would say the most idealized form. Like I like the term itself because I think that it's pretty defining.
Self-describing.
So yeah, you're talking about the Return of the Jedi Luke saber, and with the rings being different, that is how they are, right? But what was the intent when they were making it? I mean, the reality is they probably didn't intentionally make them uneven. That just happens to be the machining that came out, and they probably didn't care because it's painted and it's not going to be up close that much, and you're not going to notice it. So then idealized would say, well, this is how they intended it to look, or what they really wanted it to look like, which is pristine and perfect and clean. And so there are versions of them out there that are made that way, and there are versions that are made exactly as what you see on screen.
Yeah, so, that would be like you said. It's really I know it's a self-describing word, but like I was trying to just go a little bit further into like it made a little bit better of an explanation, I guess, but probably didn't sound right. It's a very self-describing word. Even
the other original trilogy sabers, they're not perfect. The grenades are not. They're not grooved the same. Like every booster is not the same. Every hand wheel or link knob is not the same. So forth. So yeah, it's just what is the picture perfect image of what that part or piece or saber overall should look like. So,
and I think they do it because I've actually heard of people pick up an accurate like grenade section on a Luke and be like, why are they misshapen?
I sense a trap.
And I know like people who are more understanding and understand like why it, that's the way it was accurate to the prop, or said so prop. I think it's more of like, I don't know. If you're selling lightsabers, it's more aesthetic, I guess you could say.
Yeah, absolutely.
For people who don't know, right? We can move on to accuracy now. If you would like to talk on that discussion first.
I think we just covered both of those. Like to me, accuracy is in trying to make everything as what can be validated on scene or in the scene or on screen, and then idealized is, well, they may have added some gook here and there to make this part stick to this part, or this is a switch to turn that on, and they didn't really want that to be seen. So idealized is everything that you would make a saber to be, what you think the original designer or maker or builder had in their head when they started doing it. It might not be what they came out with at the end of the day, but you're trying to make it look perfect. So it's what Disney makes the sabers look like when they sell them.
Yeah.
Because that's what people have in their head as the image of it. It's what the toys look like most of the time. But so I led on with Seven Chambers with Brad and Veracity Labs, Brian, Seven Chambers Lewis and Brian of Veracity Labs and Adam. And then I said, so it makes you wonder when they put that machine work on there, well, how do they know to do that?
Yeah, which delves into basically, I would say the biggest thing, first of all, is reference photos from on set or people. This is going to sound weird, but there are like gate-kept photos of certain props and stuff that I've seen mentioned and stuff, which we'll maybe talk about that one day. I don't really want to comment on that, but so reference photos, like we just talked about, and then the next best thing, obviously, is going to be if anybody could get their hands on any auction props or stunts. That was obviously probably the biggest help, I would say, in terms of if you had something like that in hand, like
absolutely
the company Sabers, who made Project Q, a Project M, and a Project 01 from the Phantom Menace movie. He did have, in fact, stunts from that movie as references.
Right. All free, yeah.
And that's probably the best way to get a saber like that and get it as accurate as you can. But like we did talk about before, he didn't have the hero that was in that movie, the metal hero, right, which is, I guess, what you would be striving to optimally make, I guess you could say. I don't know if you agree with that, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and so for what they did, and is that, especially with the mall, like you can tell that, we talked about resin casting and other casting forms for stunts, and that being a very effective way to not worry about damage and ones that get broken, because then you're just like, all right, let's move on to the next. We've got 20 of these.
Yeah.
So when that happens, your resin casts aren't very good long term. And I think you can tell the more that you use them, and jewelers know this especially, the more you use your cast, the less accurate they're going to get. So you have to only have certain life for it. And I think with sabers, they're able to take, some of these extreme details on the mall and say, I can count how many rings go around this, or how many creases there are in this knob or in this knob, or the shape of this well or this well. And it's accurate because it's across the whole prop that they have. And then they can say, well, we must have gotten something that was cast really early on because of all the detail. The edges are sharp, they're not rounded, everything's here. So yeah, definitely you can get your hands on a prop. But then the next best thing comes back to
reference photos
of prop store. Yeah, for sure. I think that prop store photos are great. I think. Do you remember the Kenobis that we keep looking at?
Which ones? I'm so sorry.
Episode 3.
Oh yeah.
I think it's. I want to say that. So the Kenobi had 2 heroes, I guess technically is
yes.
the thought process: a gold neck and a brown neck. And the gold neck is, I think, prop 373 that was sold to the prop store, and the gold neck I think is 689. And so you can look and see the prop store's photos, and you get really amazing, crisp, detailed photos of what that metal hero looked like. So if you're someone like Roman, you can go out and make a replica that really well goes over this highly detailed prop, and you can get all the detail, or as close as possible without folding. Yeah, that's really the rundown of how that works.
One thing I want to say too is really cool process. While Dewey, who you'll find in the RPF, is working with Starkiller on a Qui-Gon, the Phantom Menace saber, which is it's just a static. He actually like streamlined and showcased like his whole process on the RPF form.
Yeah.
And I know people do like, they're all the reference photos they could get. Sabers came in and even like helped him with the dimensions, scaling from his own prop that he had.
Right.
I mean, you could literally see them overlaying like a 3D design over like the actual reference photos and like people scaling it. How tall is Liam Neeson? How big, like what would this look like in this photo? It's this big in his hand. Like it's really, really interesting, to be honest. People go through exceptional depths and jump through like exceptional hoops and figuring out all this out and trying to lay it down into something real and that'll be in your hand.
And I mean, that usually are the folks who really want to get accuracy to the absolute nth, percentage. And I think that's a really great example to use because Dewey is very analytical and he's not really going to put a design up that he thinks lacks in accuracy. And I think seeing, the Sabers team come in and see them collaborate a little bit on size and length, and then some of the details of either a button or the midsection and its material or how it might have been finished or what it might have been made of, like seeing that collaborative behavior is so refreshing. And it's not all the time. In fact, it's not as often as I think it should be, but like the reality is seeing the two of them come in and respect each other so much and talk about it without, any personal feelings or anything else, because here is Sabers, who's made a really great Qui-Gon, trying to help Dewey make another really great Qui-Gon. And it's like, how often does Apple get together with Samsung and say, hey, let's make the best phones together? They don't. And that is the equivalent in this category of Qui-Gon. We're talking about the Qui-Gon. That is the equivalent here. We are talking about, that those two manufacturers would be a good reference. So very, very good point to make out. So, the big picture, that I think that does a great job. And so seeing those runs open on the RPF and see a lot of talk and detail and photo sharing and things like that, man, it makes you feel great. I think we talked about it too a little bit last episode, but it was that, being able to see those details, that's part of what makes me want to buy a Saber, because then I can buy in and say, hey, yeah, I really see how that is. Or even if I disagree and I'm like, even with the original Kenobi, there are some things that I don't agree 100% with the community and what they think, but I will still build my Kenobi probably to what the consensus is, even if I have something I can't prove. So it's really nice to see all the cards on the table.
One thing I want to say too, and it's kind of off topic in this video, but it is, I suggest you go and look at these runs, especially from, you could tell who's, obviously has a lot of commitments to their, their run and stuff like that. There's some bigger names that we'll talk about and stuff like that are more well known for being accurate and doing their work right. But I know a lot of people have issues with, like, they'll buy TXQ or LGT, which, they're cool because you do it. I would say they're better than the Disney ones in what you get. You could change the sound. You have sound fonts, the blade changes. There's clash, like smooth swing. But it would really give you a look into like more of a cut. I wouldn't even consider it like super custom, like someone custom made you a saber, but it is still considered a custom saber. But I know people have a hard time justifying spending more money on a saber. But this really, like, if you go and look on these forums, like, I really want you guys to, you'll understand why it's worth the money, in my opinion, and the love and, like, passion that these people have and how they're a part of the community.
So with moving on to the next kind of type of lightsaber, I want to start it off and then I want to hand it to you because well, you know how they work and you know a couple of them, and you have a friend that collects a lot of them, and I don't really know a lot of them. I see them. But I want to say that we're going to talk about originals. And these are lightsabers that generally are not necessarily made for the movies. There is a really amazing original lightsaber made by Brad from Sloth Furnace. And he made the Derelict, which is, I think, went into one of the Knights of the Old Republic cartoons, or maybe it was a video game. It went into a video game. I don't remember the video game. It might have been.
It might have been KOTOR. Yeah.
Okay, so KOTOR is okay. I don't say KOTOR to anything because growing up that's not okay. Anyway, so so with that, like, he made a lightsaber completely out of thin air. It ended up on a video game, and then you can go make that. But these lightsabers that he's going to talk about, a little bit different from the ones we originally were discussing. The manufacturing process is still the same modern manufacturing process in general, but I want to throw an asterisk before he goes into this. There is a way to kind of use pieces and parts to make lightsabers as hobbyists. There are some companies out there that just make individual parts, and then they make them so that they all screw together or fasten together. You can go out and get those. I think that MHS and is Modular Hilt System, and ASP is another one. I don't remember who makes that one, but like basically like the Custom Saber Shop and some others, they will make these pieces. But this isn't what we're talking about when we say that you can do this. We're actually still talking about people who are designing, manufacturing. So would you talk to us a little bit about those customs, the fully customs?
So I would say
like?
to start off with customs, there are like, for example, someone I know had just purchased a Princess Leia made by a custom seller, but they would take the Princess Leia lightsaber from the last episode and they would make the palm of wood, or it's like a really nice like exotic wood, and they'll add wooden accents to the piece. I would say that's like almost like your beginning to custom sabers. And then also on the topic of that, not being in canon universe, you can get into like legends, which is like the old considered canon, like books, comics, video games that were approved by George Lucas for the lore before Disney had picked them up. So like Darth Revan, Darth Nihilus, like people from Knights of the Old Republic, like those types of games and stuff like that. Like Luke's kids, Leia's kids from Legends as well. You'll see a lot of those sabers out there. So they're considered non-canon sabers, but there are companies doing runs of these sabers. Like he said, they're made the same process as your regular sabers that you're buying, but they are non-canon at this point. People really do enjoy Legends and those comics and TV series shows, so they do still like to pick up these sabers, I would say.
So you said George Lucas approved, but I think what you meant was he didn't deny.
He sanctioned it off and said most of it was okay.
He said it's okay to make it, right. He's like, I'm not going to call it canon, but I'm not going to turn my back on it either. Right? And make sure I understand.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. If you want to get into that, it was just for a whole nother episode. I think if they used some of those ideas, these movies would have gone a lot better.
I agree with that, but we're just talking about whether George said, "Hey, yes, it's okay. Go ahead and do it."
I've heard different things. So he said, from what I got off of, he approved of it.
Okay, so then we'll save that for another episode. Okay, so those are kind of like, we'll call them canon adjacent.
Yes.
Now, what about the ones that I see from so we're both in the Discord and we see a lot of makers putting things together. I mean, I've never seen anything like it ever, and then they also don't belong to like Jason Solo or any of those people. So what are those?
So the first thing I want to do is there's a person inside of our Discord for r/lightsabers, Kennedy Custom Props, right?
Oh yeah.
He is hand making every single saber from designs in his mind most of the time, and he is CNCing them, making crystal chambers, doing everything. That is, I would say, the base of custom. I wouldn't even. That feels insulting to call it base, but he is just doing everything himself, and it's beautiful. He makes amazing stuff.
There's two guys, right? So there's two guys that do it. Nightwing and then Kennedy runs the other part.
I didn't even know Nightwing did it.
I think they're two. Yeah, so Nightwing is part of Kennedy. I believe.
That's awesome.
I could be corrected on that, but I believe the two of them are together. And then I think they just like. I'm gonna say this, and I'm probably wrong. I feel like they literally just graduated high school, went out and had like 10 grand and bought a damn lathe and some other machining, and said, "We're just gonna build lightsabers out of our head."
Yeah.
And so these are the ones you're talking about. So those don't have anything to do with like characters and stuff like that. Those are just okay.
I mean, maybe you'll see some like he makes an emitter that's similar to an Obi-Wan, but it has its own twist on it. Like all I'm gonna say is they make absolutely custom stuff from everything start to finish, and it is beautiful. It is not character related most of the time. Maybe some influences. It's hard to not have influences when you're making a lightsaber. It's same with art, same with music. Anything like that. And after that, by the way, if you guys are watching, I love you shit. But keep going forward, then you start getting into more stuff like, I guess you actually, some of the custom stuff nowadays actually is character related.
Is it?
I've seen like a bunch of Starkiller sabers that are like custom made by people, and tailored, maybe their own little twist on something, like different parts on it, their own vision of it. But it's mostly Starkiller that I've seen for that.
So Anakin Starkiller, the character that they're making that character saber. So yeah, I've seen that. So I think then let me draw a small line here, because one thing that you guys will learn, that I had to learn and Chris had to learn, and again, we call ourselves the Padawan and the Apprentice because I mean we're new to this too, right? And so we kind of jumped in the deep end and you go heavy on collecting, but the term custom gets thrown around with all of the lightsabers that we collect on our side of the hobby that's not Disney or master replica. And the reason they get kind of turned that way is because they're not considered made by the imaging rights owner. And since they're not made by the imaging rights owner, they are custom in some way because they are not identical to what the image rights owner would produce. And something's different. And we'll talk a little bit here in a minute about a couple of different ways they split those differences. But you'll hear custom being referred to for all of our lightsabers because they are custom replicas. But I think what we're talking about now are those ones that have Celtic infusion, that have just, from a Starkiller, you take Anakin Starkiller's lightsaber and then maybe you modify it to make, Starkiller 2.0 or 3.0 or something like that. And those look great. I was going to mention another one that I see. I see a lot of Superman lightsabers or Tony Stark lightsabers. So I see lightsabers with cross-genre influence. Now,
there's some pretty cool ones, like Wheel of Time one that Brian Lynn laser etched that. I'm pretty sure there's a couple different really cool ones, man.
And to be honest, like if you hear me talk in the last episode about what my collection is and why and how, like these don't speak to me in a sense that like, hey, I want to collect them and I've got to put them on my shelf, because I love Star Wars. I love canon. But the artist in me, and I think I told you before, I was a musician for 15 years. I played for a torn professionally, and I did it in the military band and did it after. And the artist in me like can really appreciate how much work and hard design and dedication goes into all these pieces, because they do look like Mona Lisas, and you just have to step back and go, damn, that's really nice and expensive.
It is technically custom when like someone makes like the Qui-Gon we were just talking about. Right. It is custom, but it's hard to like break it up into categories, really.
I hate it, but unfortunately,
I would say fully custom's more like what Kennedy Props is doing, and I think soft customization would be like the laser etching,
I just wanted to bifurcate that the word custom is used for all lightsabers in the replica community that we collect, because essentially they're not licensed to make the real thing and to discuss it and talk about it with Disney or LucasArts or Lucasfilms. They don't have that. So then what they're doing is making their custom version of what they think that lightsaber is. So they're using the imaging, and then they're custom making and manufacturing, because all of the processes are different, right? Someone's pommel might screw on, someone's pommel might be connected to the booster and not unscrew. Like those are all custom features of the maker. But then there's that, unfortunately, it is the term used, but it's not that common that we use person to person, which is good. Because when we say customs, and I think on our show, when we say customs, we are going to mean Kennedy Props. We're going to mean DC Sabers. We're going to mean Electrum. Those companies that are out there really making from scratch something just out of the darkest corner of your mind.
I would almost say like everything in my collection is a replica, really.
Correct. That's what I say too.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, and then of course the Tony Starks and the Wheel of Time and Superman and all that stuff. Those are just in some way
soft. I would say it's customization, not fully custom.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I mean, so we talked about, what types of lightsabers there are. We basically broke it up between the old school way they made them and the new school way that they made them. Then how they actually make them. We talked about what the difference between an idealization of piece or part or whole in a lightsaber versus, absolute accuracy and all the degrees of difference in between there. Talked about what they use as tools to help them make, the differences. And I think, that's referenced photos from behind the scenes, from personal photos that they may have purchased. You can sometimes go to the prop store. We'll auction off behind the scenes photos that have never been seen before. Some people go buy those, keep them protected. Sometimes they share them with the public. And then, of course, using, programs and things like that to try and design and get it as close to that as possible. Talk about originals that are made that enter into the universe. We talked about customs, like Kennedy Customs, and then cross-universe stuff, that cross-genre stuff, and of course static and effects. I think as a whole, that really kind of takes 99% of what's out there. I think that kind of puts it in a foundation. And of course, there's many layers to that. But yeah, I do think that we got a pretty good handle on.
But yeah, I think that should wrap everything up. I just wanted to tell everybody thank you so much for watching the show. And if you're sticking around from the first episode, up next, we are putting in some work, like a decent amount of work to, most of the time we're off the cuff about the show, but the next episode's focusing on a buyer's guide. We'd like to think about this one quite a bit and make sure everything's organized and correct and in the best format for you guys. If you want to touch on anything about that before we cue out.
No, just stay tuned. It's a Lightsaber Buyer's Guide to the Galaxy. So I'm excited for it because I think it's where my largest pain point was, getting in and then back in and then back in again. So I'm excited to kind of share our experiences and share what we've learned so far. I would just close by saying, hey, remember, we are not absolute experts. We don't consider ourselves to be the perfect knowledge base, and that we may say or speak something that could be leaning in direction one or two that might not be right. So please feel free to correct us. Let us know. We try our best to get as much as we can across to you guys, but always happy to hear feedback, positive, negative, and everything. And so thank you for listening. I certainly appreciate it.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in. This is the High Ground Podcast, and we are out.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground! You were the chosen one!